Jay Sono here. Today we're talking about birds on the beach and birding and what impact that has and the culture of birding. So today we're on the jetty. We're also going to be going down the beach a little bit and the birding center. We're going to show you what type of birds you might see if you're out birding, and we're going to talk with the experts at the Harte Research Institute all about birding. So let's go.
Well, there's a lot of things to talk about with birding culture. Birders can be very obsessive. A lot of people have a spark bird that gets them interested in birding, and after that they're pretty much hooked. But birding can be not just enjoying birds in their natural environment and enjoying watching birds and their behaviors, but there's also an obsessive listing culture where birders try to see every bird species they possibly can in a specific region. And that can be as small as just your backyard, or it could be as broad as the world, right? A life list. Yeah, so birders look for birds in different types of habitat. So for example, today we're on the beach, and there's a lot of different shorebirds and seabirds that we could see here on the beach because these birds come into this habitat to find food. For example, around us today we have sanderlings, and we have laughing gulls, willets, and we even saw a piping plover that was doing a little foot dance to try to find food. So birding is a very popular hobby. In the United States alone, there are 96 million American birders. So the reason that birding is so popular, because it's very accessible. All you really need to watch birds is a bird feeder. You don't even need a bird feeder, actually. You could just go outside and see the birds that are in the trees. So birders are very interconnected. We have networks on various platforms to get the word out about rare birds instantly. People have not only group texts with friends, but there are like chat rooms on apps such as Discord or GroupMe, where if you see a rare bird, you can get the word out instantly, and within minutes, sometimes there can be birders just flocking to one spot. Birding is so popular that we have birding events that take place all over the world. Here in Corpus Christi, we even have one called the Birdiest Festival in America, where birders come from all over the world to see the birds that are local to the Corpus Christi area. There's also Celebration of Flight in September in Calallen, Texas, where people get to see the amazing hawk migrations, hundreds of thousands of hawks that fly over Corpus Christi, Texas in the fall. Birders celebrate birds over beers. You have, birds and beers events. You have Oktoberfest. In Port Aransas, there's the Whooping Crane Festival every February. So birding has a lot of impacts as well. Birding has impacts for birds, and birding has impacts on society. For example, birding is really good for the economy. $107 billion are spent annually on trips and equipment nationally in the United States of America. And here in South Texas, the equivalent of $650 million is spent on birding and birding trips alone. Birding is also really good for conservation. Birders contribute to citizen science projects like eBird and iNaturalist that have really transformed our understanding of bird distributions and movements. This information has helped us guide conservation outcomes directly by understanding where these birds are going, when they're moving, and the abundance of these birds in certain areas helps us understand what we need to do to conserve these birds. So birders are also often part of organizations that do a lot of conservation work. For example, here in Corpus Christi, we have the Audubon Outdoor Club and the Coastal Bend Audubon Society. And these groups work to purchase land or acquire land to preserve it for birds. And the birders that are part of these organizations are fundamental to making these changes. Birders also donate to a lot of conservation projects. And for example, here in Texas, there's the Great Texas Birding Classic competition, where birders pay an entrance fee to partake in a competition where you try to see the most birds in a single day as you can, through the Texas Parks and Wildlife Foundation, the Great Texas Birding Classic. All this money goes to fund conservation projects across Texas. So some folks at HRI in the Conservation Biodiversity Lab, we partake in the Great Texas Birding Classic every year, and for the last 2 years in a row, we've actually won in our region. The Conservation Biodiversity Lab at the Harte Research Institute studies bird conservation on Colony Islands. and protecting the habitat that the birds need for nesting. And some of the activities that we do include monitoring birds with a drone to follow their nesting success, as well as capturing birds and deploying tags on them to see their movements and identify key foraging habitats. We're looking to find out how birders value bird colony islands. So if bird colony islands matter to you, you can go to www.birdislands.org and look for our listserv so you can learn more about our project. So we're here now at the Port Aransas Jetty, and it represents a little bit of a different habitat. With all these rocks here, it provides excellent places for birds to look for little invertebrates and things that might be in these rocks. So you might find different species such as snowy egrets feeding among the rocks. I've seen reddish egrets here. This is a good spot for ruddy turnstone, and sometimes you can even find something really rare like a surfbird or a black turnstone. The beach also provides a good habitat for birds to roost after feeding offshore. So sometimes you'll get flocks of terns roosting here on the beach, and if you pick through them with your binoculars, you may be able to find something really rare. And finding rare birds is one of the highlights of birding. And you can see here there's a lot of pelicans that are foraging on the fish that are out here. Pelicans like to forage on mullet, so they might be finding a lot of mullet here along the shore. So getting into birding is free, but birding tools can run you up a lot of money. Binoculars and cameras, they can cost thousands of dollars. But there are some tools that you can use for birding that are absolutely free, and they're available right here on your cell phone. One app that we have is called Merlin. You can download it for free, and what it does is it identifies birds for you based on their calls. So for example, there's this flock of terns and gulls right behind me. I face my phone microphone to the birds, and it's telling me there are sandwich terns and royal terns calling behind me. And so it can identify some of the birds in this group just by their audio. Another app that's available on your phone through the Cornell Lab of Ornithology is eBird. And what eBird does is it not only tells you where you can find birds, but it gives you an opportunity to report the birds that you've seen on your outing. So for example, today the birds that we've seen, the laughing gulls, the willets, the ruddy turnstones, I can submit them in an eBird checklist, and then that information then goes into a database that scientists can access. And all this crowdsourced data can tell us where these birds are and what their movements are. One of the things that attracts people to birding is there's a challenging aspect to it. Bird identification can be remarkably tricky. There are some groups of birds that are remarkably more challenging to identify than others. For example, here's a good place to see shorebirds. And shorebirds, sandpipers, plovers, they can be very similar in their appearance. And birders revel in the opportunity to be able to look through their guidebook and tease apart those fine differences that make those species different. A couple years ago, there was a hurricane that came from the Pacific and went across the Isthmus of Tehuantepec and pushed a bunch of flamingos from the Yucatan Peninsula across the Gulf into Florida. And those birds, probably over 100 birds, probably more than that, dispersed into the eastern United States. And so people were seeing flamingos all the way as far north as Pennsylvania. And then come winter, those birds found out, oh, it's cold up here, and they wanted to come back down, so they started moving south. But they took kind of a western route, and some of them ended up here. We had 3 flamingos come here in October of 2023, and 2 of them have since departed, but 1 of them has remained, and it's a regular here at the Leona Bell Turnbull Birding Center. Here at Port Aransas at the Leona Bell Turnbull Birding Center, this is a good place in the wintertime to see whooping cranes. Whooping cranes breed in Wood Buffalo National Park in Canada, and they migrate across the central part of the United States to Aransas National Wildlife Refuge in the surrounding region. And there's a family of birds that come a little bit south here into this area too. And sometimes you can look out here and you see these massive white birds just in the distance. It's a popular draw for birding here in this part of Texas. So now we're in a different habitat. This is more wooded, and it attracts a whole different group of species. So now we're getting a bunch of songbirds that are migrating through, passing through here. In fact, there's a yellow warbler here in this little mesquite, and then I see a Wilson's warbler there. This spot here with these willows is particularly popular in the spring with birders. It attracts birders from all over the country. because these birds that are flying off of the Yucatan Peninsula of Mexico, they arrive here maybe 10 o'clock in the morning after crossing the Gulf, and this is the first group of trees they see coming off the coast. And it's great because it provides structure. There's often drips that provide fresh water and shelter from wind and the elements that help them rest after such a long journey. And so because all these birds are coming together in one place, of course, all the birders are going to be coming together in one place too.
Okay, hopefully you learned something about birding, what an important impact birders have for the community, and a little bit about the species we have around this area, also known as the birdiest city in America. All right, hope you enjoyed this episode of Beachcombing, and we'll catch you on the next one. Bye.